By the time the 1980s rolled around, the American car market was a whole new ball game. In a post-gas crisis America, where compact imports were flooding the streets, Ford and its subsidiaries realized that a big change was needed to cater to the growing demand for smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. And this shift in strategy led to some of Ford's most unusual and often overlooked vehicles. Enter the Mercury LN7 and Ford EXP, Ford's first two-seater cars since the iconic Thunderbird debuted back in 1955. After more than 2 decades without a two-seat sports car, Ford's return to this market with these new models was, well, a bit of a challenge to say the least. The journey of the EXP and LN7 actually begins with the US market Ford Escort. And when I say US market, there's a reason behind it. While the Escort was a massive hit overseas for Ford, becoming a top seller and proving itself as a powerhouse on the race and rally tracks, even Cosworth jumped in with the legendary RS 1600. The same couldn't be said for its performance in America. Ford had always struggled to sell their European bestsellers in the US. So, in the 1980s, they decided it was time to build a brand new generation of Escort designed for both the US and global markets from the get-go. This new version was meant to replace the Pinto in the States and the Mark II Escort in Europe, both of which were rear-wheel drive, budget-friendly cars. But when Ford dropped the new Escort in 1981, it was a bold shift. The car moved away from the traditional rear-wheel drive setup and introduced a front-wheel drive system. Powered by a range of 4-cylinder engines, this new Escort wasn't exactly groundbreaking. And let's be honest, it wasn't nearly as sleek as its European counterparts. When Ford released the new generation of Escorts in the US, they were a far cry from exciting. Let's face it, they were pretty plain. However, these cars became the best sellers in the US due to their aggressive pricing and practical appeal. But Ford, for some reason, felt the need to go beyond practicality and shake things up. This led to the creation of the Ford EXP and Mercury LN7. Perhaps Ford thought the regular Escort wasn't thrilling enough for enthusiasts, so they decided to go all in with a fresh, bold redesign. The EXP was reworked to resemble a sportier, Mr. 2-like silhouette, complete with a sharper, more aggressive front end and raised square headlights. The rear of the EXP and LN7 was much more subtle than the front, but the sloping roofline gave these cars a distinct sporty edge. The aggressive angles made them longer, lower, and far more dynamic than the standard Escort. Released in 1982, these cars certainly stood out. However, Ford and Mercury made one major change that became a challenge. They removed the rear seats. The Escort's success was largely due to its practicality, so it's puzzling why they decided to cut out the back seats on the EXP and LN7. The only other car Ford had done this with was the first-generation Thunderbird, which later added back seats for better sales. This decision left the EXP and LN7 without the practical appeal their predecessor enjoyed. The Mercury LN7 was essentially a twin to the Ford EXP, with just a few tweaks, like a larger front grille and a bubble rear window compared to the flat glass on the Ford version. Underneath, both cars shared the same base Escort platform, with independent suspension on both ends and disc brakes up front, while the rear had drum brakes. For those looking for improved handling, there was an optional TR suspension package, which included upgraded wheels, tires, sway bars, and tuning. However, both cars faced a major obstacle: the underpowered 1.6-liter inline 4 engine. Producing only 70 to 80 horsepower, depending on the trim, the engine offered minimal performance. To make matters worse, the EXP, despite being a sportier version, was heavier than the standard Escort. Whether you chose the 4-speed, 5-speed manual, or automatic, these cars struggled with sluggish acceleration, making them anything but thrilling to drive. The base EXP models were painfully slow, taking a gut-wrenching 14 seconds to go from 0 to 60, with the quarter-mile time sitting in the 19-second range. Even the slightly more powerful 80-horsepower versions didn't impress, offering minimal performance. To make matters worse, you were paying a hefty $2,000 more for the EXP than the regular Escort, and for that extra money, you got worse performance and 2 fewer seats. The EXP's MSRP was $7,400, compared to the Escort's $5,400, with the Mercury variant costing another $400. All that extra cash only bought you a new body and some minor interior changes, yet the dashboard was unchanged from the Escort. Despite this, Ford was optimistic, expecting to sell 200,000 of these cars in 1982. Spoiler alert, the EXP and LN7 barely reached half of Ford's optimistic sales target. In fact, the second year was even worse. Realizing the mistake, Ford scrambled to fix the situation. By 1984, Mercury had completely discontinued the LN7, which was about as popular as ice in the Arctic. To address the EXP's performance issues, Ford introduced the EXP Turbo, adding a turbocharger to boost power to 120 horsepower. This improved acceleration, with 0 to 60 now under 10 seconds and the quarter mile at 17 seconds. However, despite the improvements, sales were still sluggish, with only 23,000 units sold in 1984. From 1984 onward, the EXP and LN7 faced tough competition in the two-seat sports car market. The Toyota MR2 and Pontiac Fiero, both with sleek designs and true mid-engine layouts, quickly outshined the Ford models. On top of that, the EXP had a reputation for poor build quality, which didn't help its case. In a bid to revive the struggling model, Ford gave the EXP a facelift halfway through the 1985 model year. The front fascia was redesigned to resemble the Ford Escort, ditching the signature headlight pods in favor of a more conventional front grille. The taillights were updated, and the bubble-back glass from the now discontinued Mercury variant made its way to the EXP. While some preferred the updated look, I personally missed the original's quirkiness. Along with the new appearance, Ford upgraded the engine to a 1.9-liter inline-4, replacing the original 1.6-liter. The new motor produced 90 horsepower with a 2-barrel carburetor, but the sportier variant, the EXP Sport Coupe, cranked out 116 horsepower with fuel injection. Despite these upgrades, the EXP remained a slow seller, moving just 30,000 units in 1986 and 25,000 in 1987. In the end, Ford pulled the plug on the EXP to make room for the new Ford Probe. Ford initially aimed high with the EXP, expecting to sell 200,000 units in its first year. In reality, they barely reached that number over 7 years. The EXP turned out to be a major sales flop. While the Escort was a huge success, Ford could have easily catered to performance enthusiasts by introducing more unique variants of the Escort instead of directly competing with the Toyota MR2 and Pontiac Fiero, which played a part in the EXP's early downfall. Despite producing around 200,000 units, finding one today is incredibly rare, as time has not been kind to them. If you've ever owned or had an experience with an EXP or LN7, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share your story with us. Thanks for watching another episode of our American Road Legends documentary series. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and share it with other car lovers. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more amazing content about some of the world's most unique cars. See you in the next episode, car enthusiasts.